Welcome everyone, members and supporters of the South Bunbury Football Club. My name's Trevor Nisbet and I've got the really fortunate opportunity to interview one of South Bunbury Football Club's great legends in Garry Buswell. Sport's journey into Tigerland started in 1962 and Sport played 210 games for the Tigers. He was part of the Reserves Premiership in 1965 and 3 league premierships in 1966, 1968 and 1971. Sport coached the league side in 1975 and retired at the end of that year. Sport, welcome. It's great to have a chat with you, mate. And the first question I'd like to put to you, mate, is tell us a bit about your story of getting to the Tigers.
Well, I was born, well not born, but I lived in the heart of Garry Park. And there was mainly, most of South Bunbury came from Garry Park, and most of the Garry Park blokes came from South Bunbury, which was a bit of an anomaly, but they in the early days, we used to terrorise them by calling them billy goats. It's been carried on over the years, and we had a great rivalry, and they've had some good players. They were a little bit hard to nail down towards the end of their time.
Yeah, that's interesting. With you growing up in Garry Park, is there a real reason for that? Is there a reason why South appealed to you rather than Garry Park?
No, well, in those days the only 2 grounds we had were the recreation ground and Hands Oval, and of course coming to Hands Oval as opposed to the recreation ground, it was a non-event, you know, so we used to come over here and on the off nights and have kick-to-kick, or when South were training, get up behind the goals and watch all the players like Cede Nullis, Garry Buswell. They just legends of the club, and then we try and sneak a football if we could. If there's one over the fence that went out of bounds, we'd grab it and keep running to Garry Park with it. So we always had a football, which was more like a basketball by the time we'd finished with it.
Were you always with Terry?
Yeah, we grew up together, and most of the action was in his front yard because there's a fair family there, and there's always a cricket match going on. You could drive down the street and there's picket fences were broken. You'd know that was made of cricket bat, and then in the winter we'd have the football, and this would begin. You'd put it in the oven and warm it up so it'd dry it out and come out like a brick the next day, so it'd break your foot.
Your time at watching training here, Teddy Hosking you mentioned, were there others that you really liked?
A magnificent kick, you know. It was just one of the best kicks you'd ever see. You know, I always say to people, there's long kicks and then there's Teddy Hoskins, you know. He was a brilliant kick. And Jackie was more of a net kicker, I suppose you call it. He's this sort of spirited and short. Ronnie was a gun, you know. Whatever he took on, boxing, you know, the brawl started in the football, you wouldn't have to see him hanging out. He's a little bloke, but he used to wail into the biggest of them, you know. And he was good, really. And yeah, they had Hungry Bob Farquhar, but you know, in those days, Bunbury and South Bunbury in the early 60s, Bunbury were the dominant. I think they won 3 premierships. But I remember coming over one day and watching Sydney Jackson and Max Maguire go head to head. It's the best individual duel I've seen as a one-on-one. They just turned it on. I was only about 15, but I was just in awe of the brilliance of them both. You know, they both had their moments, but it's well worth the money to go and see. Not that I paid the money, I'd probably jump the bloody fence.
You're obviously coached by some really good people in your journey, which was a long one, to play 210 games. You've got to play a lot of football, and I guess some of the coaches really stand out.
Well, the first coach was Ivor Robinson. Now Robbie took over, and he was a sort of lovable sort of bloke, always got a smile on his face and a twinkle in his eye. And he coached us for 2 years, and we were sort of just most of the young blokes coming through there. And Robbie one day came up with this great idea, and he said, "I want you blokes to get in the shower there before the start of the game and have a cold shower." And I thought, shit, I didn't think I was that aroused. And anyway, he got together in the shower, and then he gets them out and gets them geared up, and then he said, "Now I want you to think of this, fellas. Football's like sex. The more you get of it, the more you want, you know." And of course, everyone sort of a bit taken back. And then he said, and one thing he said, if God's found anything better, he's keeping it to himself. So Robbie here was my first coach, and then we got the old oil can Harry Vidlich came down here for one. And Harry was one of those, you lead, I'll follow. And hard at it. We won the premiership one by about 10 points against a very good Busselton side. But Overcam was he was only here for 1 year, but he was really, positive coach.
He's related to Sid Simeon.
Yeah, Sid Simeon's brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law, yeah.
And of course the Waterman boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a hard nut. Played a few games for Swans, but not many. But he used to lead by example.
Yeah.
And and then we sort of Kennedy was more of a old Terry before him. Terry coached for a year or two, or only 1 year, I think. But he tried to be a professional. We had a pre-season camp down at Tone River and sort of trying to improve the standard of training, pre-season. And Merv Kennedy, was a perfectionist, but a bit of a stern character. He used to put the pressure on you to perform at your best all the time, which probably wasn't a bad thing. So, you learn a bit off all of them.
Yeah. Merv was a stickler for, the early morning training sessions and other things.
Yeah, no.
Do you enjoy that?
I used to like training. I mean, I wouldn't miss a chance to go training, but he used to have me at training, and we had a couple of disagreements at times over just, little things I reckon was right, he reckon he's right, but, you two balls like horns,
Look, there are a number of things that you got up to in playing footy and against other teams and internally. Have you got anything that stands out?
Well, I've been bitten, punched, kicked on the footy field. Had about 4 broken noses. Cheekbone broken in 4 places. The nose got broken 4 times, but there's plenty to aim at, so I suppose that's a good target. But it's quite, you see quite a few things going on in the game. But
yeah, there was an incident you were talking about. Someone had bitten you at some stage.
Yeah, I got bitten up the wreck one day. We were in a bit of a scuffle, and next thing I go to get up and I thought, what's that about my arm? Next thing you're supposed to locked onto the bloody armpit bite. So in the following, next time I come into contact with him, I said, "Oh, you had your breakfast this morning, and we can't have cannibalism around here." But anyway, it was all good. Yes.
All good. Yeah. Well, these days it'll be a long penalty for someone doing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because I've said to the guys when you come in at half time, I said, "Have a look at this. Bit me. Look at my arm."
Well, thanks, Sport. I mean, that's a really brief rundown. Give us an idea. Where did you get the name Sport?
My grandfather, who was the most red and white man, he used to follow them all around. He used to have red prefect ute and used to drive me around the country. He dubbed me with it. I don't know if it's because I was must have been a bad sport, I think, but I can think of no other reason, But my old papa used to love going. He used to pack the old thermos and the cakes, and that was good for me. We'd head off to Donnybrook and places like that, Busselton, the old red prefect.
It's unbelievable to see how many games you've played and all the coaches you've had. They've all been fantastic people for the South Bunbury Footy Club, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, when it's all said and done, you take a bit away from all of them. Like somebody will be hard on you, and you think you're hard at the time, but then you come out the other side and think, well, that was good, And then you get others that are sort of more can sort of coach you in a different way, but get the best out of you,
Yeah. Well, I certainly did. I mean, you played in 3 premierships with
3 premierships, 5 grand finals.
Yeah. It's a pretty good record.
One of the best games I've ever played in. It was surprisingly the hardest game was a game against Collie when they clearly were a better side than us. They played us, I think, about 5 times, the scratch matches and the finals and that. And Michael Bennett took one of the best marks you'd ever want to see, about 15 metres out from goal there, which would have put us in the lead with about a minute to play, and he missed. And Michael was a brilliant kick,
Yeah, absolutely.
He would kick it 11 out of 10 any other day, but I suppose the pressure of the game. But there's fights and physical stuff, and just really, you come up and think, well, they were a better side than us, but we just could have won with a stroke of luck, but wasn't to be. But you can't win every year.
Yeah, well, you won 3, which is an outstanding, and your record is just unbelievable. So,
I was just talking to moto on the way in, and if you worked out the players that we could have won a couple more in that early period, because we lost Kimmy Kersel, who went on and played for East Fremantle the year after '66, and then we lost Alan Prosser, who played for the state. There was Terry, who was away doing national service, and David Hollins, who won a Sandover medal. So, fair bunch of players that you could have whacked into that side, you know.
Yeah, well, it would have been great players in that era, that's for sure.
Well, Hollins was a magnificent kick, you know.
He and Alan Prosser together would have been unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, Kim Kersel was a pretty good player.
He was a good player.
18, and he played for State.
Yeah.
And not State, he played at centre half back in the '66 Premiership side, you know. Got into a bit of a yike and caused a bit of conjecture in that game, but he was a good player, Kim. You know, he's a really good player.
Yeah.
He was Mel Cowdery's brother-in-law.
Yeah. Well, talk about characters. There's a few characters you've met along the way.
They're all true there in those stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell us a bit about those characters.
Yeah.
What about Mel Cowdery?
Do you want the story on Mel Cowdery?
Yeah, we'd love a story on Mel Cowdery.
Well, Mel was he was a great storyteller. You know what? He could spin a yarn, but he one day we'd been, I think before the club had been completed, we were down the Burley one night and we were leaving the pub, and myself, Terry, Barry Venables and Cowdery. And Cowdery used to be a wrestler in his younger days. And coming the other way was this big red-headed bloke that you didn't want to see, you know, about 6'4" and angry, you know, and I thought, shit. So we were walking up past him, and then all of a sudden he just elbowed, or just shoulder charged Barry Venables and said, "Watch it, I'll knock you." And with that, Cowdery jumped into action. He's grabbed him, slammed him on the canvas like a professional wrestler he used to be, or amateur wrestler, whatever he was. Give him a couple of backhanders across the face, rubbed a handful of sand in his face, and then said, "Don't you ever let me see you do that again." Well, the poor prick was going up the street, he's thinking he'd shot him, looking over his shoulder. But he was a great storyteller. You know, had that tone. You know, he used to put a lot of effort into telling a story.
Well, it's handy being a good storyteller when you're the strength and conditioning coach, isn't it? Because you need to convince guys to stay in the gym.
Yeah. No, he was a funny fellow.
Yeah. What about Tommy Trigwell, another character of the footy club?
Yeah, well, Tom, unfortunately, left us about 2 months ago.
Yeah,
with a long
very
illness,
sad.
And I've never seen a man with red. I reckon if they went to the blood bank, they would say, "You can't take yours because there's too much red and white in there," you know. But he was used to get the crowd involved, and one of the funniest things that we've seen was one day there was Cowdery through his wrestling troop. They conned us all into going to a wrestling match.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It was down at the Southway Hall, and Tommy and Cowdery said, "Oh, we'll get a group together and we'll go to the wrestling." You know, and Cowdery knows a couple of them. Of course, we'd never twigged, you know. We said, "Yeah, right." As we get to the Southway Hall, and there was a fair crowd there, and there was a couple of early bouts on it, and they said, we were up the back, as I recall. And the main event's Crusher Webb's the guy's name, you know, Mr. Nasty, you know.
Crusher Webb.
Crusher Webb. You've ever heard a name like that? And Crusher comes in and then gets up on the ropes and, "Hey, Bubba," local yokels, and going, you know, baiting the crowd up, you know. The next thing in the back of this voice comes out, "You're a wanker, Webb," you know. And it's Tommy, and we said, "Shut up, for Christ's sake, you'll get us killed," you know. And of course, Cowdery said, "Settle down, Tom, sit down," you know. And of course, Tom's wife's screaming and, you know, "Sit down, Tommy, don't be a people." "Oh, sit down, all right," you know, and I'll show him. And of course, it makes out he's trying to run up to the stage, and Crusher Webb's going like this, you know. Cowdery's hanging on, you know, and they're doing like a toboggan show, sliding up the middle of that. Anyhow, Tommy's, you know, "Oh, come up there and knock your block off your great log," you know, and all this sort of thing. And we of course, by this time, we're heading for the exit. Anyhow, as it's turned out, it was all a hoax, you know. You just clean us up no end.
Oh, well, Tommy and Mel got together, obviously, about it. Yeah.
No, it's sad the way Tommy went, but
yeah,
I mean, that's life, I guess, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful man for the football club too, was he? Fantastic.
It's unfortunate that he left the way he did, but I mean,
yeah.
Things happen in football clubs, as you well know.
Yeah, sure do. Sport, with all the wonderful games you played, what's your most memorable one?
Well, probably the grand final of 70, whatever.
Grand final in
71.
Yeah.
Mav Kennedy was coach. We played Mines Rovers. It was one of those tight games. There was only 7 or 8 goals each at three-quarter time. And we were sort of under siege in the first part of the game with Rendell and Duper in the back line just, repelling everything. And then we sort of got a bit lucky later in the game because I was playing with like osteitis pubis and couldn't run on the ball. Hadn't had a touch all day. And I got a few in the last quarter and slammed through a couple to win the game, and it was probably the highlight of my career. But I suppose it mightn't be a day, it could be a time,
Well, it's a great memory because it's everyone's dream, isn't it, to kick a couple of goals to win the
and you can sort of remember
big game.
I was thinking, was I 70 metres out? And I thought it must be down to the centre. But the truth, there is a bit of film of it. I was only probably 35 to 40 out with one of them. The other one I marked it on the goal line.
Oh, never mess up a good story.
No, because the angle was that tight, I was up in the car.
And that'll get better as the years go on. Unbelievable. Look, you've played with some really good players, and you mentioned some of them already. Who do you think are probably the best couple of players that you've played with, and the best club people around South?
The best player I saw, in the time I was involved in football down here was clearly Leon Baker, because, I never played with him, but I coached against him and watched him, and his ability to read the ball off hands, was just exemplary. But Terry was probably the best player I played with, until he left and went to the opposition, of course. But his skills, I suppose, if you're trying to mix them up with a player like that played today, played very much like Ben Cousins. Duck and weave, and
both feet.
That's correct. So if you were even playing in the forward line, you just had to hold your lead until because you knew it'd eventually get clear. It just no matter which way they went, left, right, or centre. And he was a very skillful player. Bruce Crabb was people wouldn't really realise, but he was the toughest player I think in South Bunbury that I saw. I saw him get ironed out twice down at Margaret River, and it would have killed most people. He just got up with a silly smile on his face and got on with the game, Kennedy was a good player. Rendell and Duper were good, teammates. The Constantine boys, they're all good players. The opposition, the one that used to always cut me off, when I was playing forward, was Errol Barrett. I found a lot of trouble getting rid of him. He was not that quick, but brilliant read of the play.
Yeah, he's a good player, wasn't Errol?
Yeah, just waddle into place and just edge you out, and it was very hard to get rid of. But they had some good players at Kerry Park at that time, so we had a good rivalry with them.
What about, club people around the club that you really admired for the hard work they did?
Sidney Armstrong, was...
Oh, yeah.
He was the reason. He was the water boy, used to make you not allowed to drink too much squash or get a cramp. He always had a bloody raffle book in his back pocket with your name on it. But you'd go to because sometimes as a player's rep, and you'd go there and old Sid would be, come on, I've got a ticket for you, $20 ticket, which is like half your bloody week's wages, in a car or something like that. And he was always first to when the doors open, the first thing you're doing something. And used to get on with everyone, because he was pretty easy going, Blake.
He was. Yeah, he was a wonderful servant for the footy club, And there's been a lot, but
I wouldn't even know anybody that's on the committee or anything here now, but you still need the people in the background boys to keep things moving,
And your great rivalry with probably Kerry Park in the day.
In the day, Kerry Park were when I first started playing, they were what we used to call them the Easy Beach, after the band, the Easy Beach. And because when they were running, in those days you had to come out in a line and get your stops checked and make sure you got no rings on your fingers. And we'd make a point of getting out early. And then here they come those billy goats, the Easy Boats, and they, said, "We're not billy goats, we'll show you." And because in the early days we really used to towel them up, and they gradually got boys like Parrott, Neil Lloyd, two Peninsula boys, the Carlsons, you know, all South Bunbury domicile players, so should have got one in the zone. And you know, they eventually crept up on us and started beating us, which we didn't like too much, but that was the best rivalry with us. And then later, when Terry went to Harvey Brunswick, that rivalry really took on.
That was solid, wasn't it? Yeah. No, it's, you know, if you're going to reflect on, you know, some of the great players you've played with, but also some really good teammates. They don't have to be the best players, of course, but really good teammates that you played with.
Alex Carl, as I say, the Constantine boys, Michael Brennan. There was heaps of them. They formed the nucleus side. You know, we played in 5 grand finals in 10 years. So I mean, you don't do that by recruiting, you know, foreign players. But if I've missed any of them, my apologies, because it's hard to remember all of them. But they were sort of really.
Well, you mentioned Ray Rendell earlier.
Oh, Rendell and Duper, and you know, as I say, Bruce Club was a you know, he used to, you couldn't. You know, people wouldn't see it, but he used to bloody drop some physical pressure out there, but he'd just get up and get on with it, you know. But he was a very good player. Kennedy himself was good, but Terry, you know, when I played with him, you know, I had a good synergy with him because, as I say, he knew what he was going to do. It's always easy for him, you know, like, if you've got a player that gets hold of the ball and you know they've got a bit of pace, so you just start running and they just pop it out in front of you. Well, it makes your life a little bit easier, you know. But, you know, it's just, I think we had the basis of, you know, probably 12 or 14 good bricks and mortar boys, you know, that just kept on working, you know.
Yeah. Well, look, people say you're lucky you played in a really good period, but you were a big part of that sport, you know, through that time.
Well, I think it was not so much, it was just that you had a good, you know, unique time. I mean, you have a look at your AFL clubs now. You've got to have that nucleus. You just can't go and say, right, we'll have this, and this. You know, you've got to like to want to play with one another and not let each other out. And you know, sort of, you know, if they've got to give up a bit to get a bit, we'll do it. So you know, but I mean, I think that was mainly most of those boys went on and played over 100 games. You know, so they were there for a few years, and you get used to their playing and style and that.
Yeah, no, it was a very, very good era for the club. Well, sport. Look, that'll just about do us, I think. And look, thank you, mate, for the opportunity to have a chat with you. Look, I know you've been through a rough period in the last few years, but you're handling it so well, and it's really good to see. And the second part of it, of course, is you're only 79 years young. you're only a pup.
I've got a few things going for me. I've got a wonderful family and a few good mates that pop around and see me all the time to keep me going, you know. And I suppose, you know, you have a few things going on in your life, but as long as you feel okay, you're all right, you know.
Yeah, fantastic.
I feel all right.
Yeah, fantastic. And look, you know, you're a South Bunbury person through and through, as is the Buswell family. You must be very proud of the Buswell family and what it means to South Bunbury.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, as I said in one of my notes there, that I think there's more Buswells that played on hands over than any other Smith and Jones combined, you know, because there's always the Buswell popping up and, you know, they very rarely went anywhere else, you know. But I was sort of pleased that I played all the football here, and I went to Harvey Brunswick and Colin and had a couple of good years at each of those, not as a player, just as a coach. But the last year I played was the best year I'd ever played, but I think I was 30 and I thought, I don't want to go on any further and finish up injured or something, you know, so I don't thought maybe 200 games and a couple of premierships, so you don't ask for much more than that.
Well, fantastic, mate. Finished in 1975 and went on to coach. You've done it all. It's just a wonderful contribution, not just to South, but to football in general. But you were a South person through and through, and you know, I think Cede Nullis sums you up, mate. You yield to no one, and you've just been a wonderful contributor to the South Bunbury Football Club.
All right, thanks for that, Trev.
Yeah, good on you, mate.
Yeah.
Lovely to see you. Thank you.
For the good old Tigers' name, hear the barricades shouting as we stand.